What's up, DC? This is girl Mindy Joe with the DCVoice.com, and we are here at the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference 2018. Well, today's panel discussions are really hot and heavy. These are really topics that are critical right now. Criminal justice reform, along with the entertainment industry, and we can definitely hear from Meek Mill. We had a chance to see that him and Drake finally squashed their rap beef, so maybe he'll talk a little bit about that. But we have a great show ahead. Tune in.
It's an honor and a privilege to see so many folks who are here with us today. I'm Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. It's my honor to represent the 8th Congressional District in New York, otherwise known as the People's Republic of Brooklyn. Someone said to me the other day, one of my colleagues, he said, Hakeem, why do you always shout Brooklyn out? I said, that's how we do. But this is an honor to represent my hometown in the United States Congress in Queens and to serve with so many other distinguished elected officials, particularly those who are members of the Congressional Black Caucus. We're thankful that so many folks have come out here today. I know enough to know we have a great panel, a great set of issues to discuss, a great turnout, standing room only, and I know y'all ain't here to see me. But I did just want to frame the discussion, and then I'm going to turn it over to our dynamic moderator. Last year, we did a panel on artists and activism. This year, we're focused on criminal justice equality and the role that musicians have historically played. Why did we take that approach? Because we concluded that we're in an all-hands-on-deck moment, given what we face here in America. And when you track the African-American journey, we've always been in a situation where there's been progress followed by backlash. Progress followed by backlash. We know this is a great country born of high ideals, but we also know that there was a birth defect, a genetic imperfection during the founding of the Republic around the question of race manifesting itself initially in slavery, one of the worst crimes ever committed against humanity. But as a result of a whole lot of folks working through that challenge, we arrived at emancipation, and then the 13th Amendment outlawing slavery, 14th Amendment equal protection under the law, 15th Amendment guaranteeing the right to vote regardless of race, the Reconstruction period from 1865 to 1878, progress. And then immediately the North leaves the South. And what happens? Jim Crow descends. Plessy versus Ferguson. The KKK rises up. A lynching epidemic. Black codes put into place in the Jim Crow South and throughout the country. Progress followed by backlash. And then as a result of so many of the people upon whose shoulders we stand, there was another moment of progress. Brown v. Board of Education, Jackie Robinson, Rosa Parks, civil rights leaders, Dr. King, the Big Six, leading to the 1964 Civil Rights Act, 1965 Voting Rights Act, 1968 Fair Housing Act, War on Poverty, Great Society, Medicare, Medicaid, Head Start, Living Wage, all of that done. Progress once more. And then in 1968, in April, King is assassinated. Later that summer, RFK is assassinated. And then in November, Richard Nixon is elected on a platform of appealing to racial anxiety as it relates to the progress that had been made. Sound familiar? And then Nixon gets elected, anti-busing, anti-affirmative action, ushers in a new so-called conservative movement. And it's relevant to what we're going to talk about here today. In 1971, announces the war on drugs by declaring drug abuse public enemy number one. In 1971, at that time, there were less than 350,000 people incarcerated in America. Today, more than 2.2 million. More people than any other country in the world, the majority of whom Black and Latino, half of whom nonviolent drug offenders. Progress followed by backlash that included the mass incarceration epidemic. And then bringing us to where we are today, in 2008, the great Barack Obama is elected. A phenomenal development for this country, and we're much better off today because of the 8 years that he spent in this town. But consistent with the journey that we as African Americans have had in this country, every time there's progress, it's followed by backlash. And the backlash moment that we found ourselves in initially manifested itself with the Tea Party so-called revolution. That's Article 1 in the House of Representatives in 2010. And then the Supreme Court strips away Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act that had been put into place in 1965. That's Article 3, the court system. And then it concludes with the election of the hater-in-chief. Can I talk to y'all? The Grand Wizard of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Someone who has never hesitated to fan the flames of racial hatred. I'm not trying to say that every American who voted for Donald Trump is a racist. I do know every racist in America voted for Donald Trump. And when you're in a backlash moment, which we're in right now, it requires all hands on deck. Members of Congress, clergy, activists, our fraternities and our sororities, entertainers, athletes, and musicians, and of course, the public intellectuals that are on the stage right now.
Let me, I don't think we gave Hakeem Jeffries, wait. You guys know this brother from what you see him doing in public. I get a chance to see what he does behind the closed door. If you think Hakeem Jeffries is tough on television and tough on the stump, you should see this man behind the closed door with Republican leaders who don't understand when he walks in. They understand when he walks out. No, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. This is the only brother on earth who could have possibly figured out a way to get through this House of Representatives, a prison reform bill. They got 360 votes, 100% of the Democratic leadership. This brother's so bad, he had Trump and Pelosi supporting his bill. Nobody messes with Hakeem Jeffries. And so, when he asked me to be a part of the panel, I said, listen, you're my leader and teacher. I've been doing this stuff for 25 years. I've never seen anybody be effective on both sides. Doesn't bite his tongue and still is effective, I think. You can see the interest. If you record this for a podcast, there's 7,000 people in this room. All of them ready. But there wouldn't be. I mean, it's standing room only. This panel is a special panel for the Congressional Black Caucus. We literally tried to get the best people to help, because people in this room want to do stuff. They want to make things happen. And so we wanted to get people who are doers as well as thinkers, as well as prominent folks. First and foremost, the good brother Meek Mill is here, and I'm so glad he's home. And to have the kind of platform that he has as one of the world's greatest musicians, and to be mistreated and then to come out. A lot of people, when they come out, they hug their mama and they hug their girlfriend and they go on. He has come out fighting for justice. We got Meek Mill as the foremost. The sisters have been in the forefront, the background, and all around this fight for justice for generations and for centuries. And one of the foremost scholars of black women, black history, black music, and its intersection with social activism is here, Professor Michelle Scott. Give her a round of applause. Has forgotten more about justice than most of us are ever going to know. She's going to help us. And then there's a shy retiring, very soft-spoken, under-accomplished new scholar that we have high hopes for. No. You know, my father taught me growing up, excellence is a weapon against racism. And when you have somebody who has a mind like this brother, who has produced not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not 19 books, each one of them a testament to black genius and black accomplishment and black commitment to justice, who then doesn't hide out on the campuses, but goes on television and will out-debate and outbox anybody. We are honored to have on this stage the good brother, Michael Eric. And then also, you know, behind the scenes in the entertainment industry, in the business, we have to have allies and champions. You know, it's one thing to be a star, it's something else to own a studio. You see, it's one thing to be an artist, that's critical, but artists have to deal with the so-called suits. And when the suits are wrong, you can't do very much. But when you have somebody who's served in government, somebody who's served on boards of corporations and colleges, and who is inside the music industry, who cares about justice, you have something we haven't had for a long time. The brother Jeffrey Halston is here. Give him a round of applause. So I want to start out with Meek. Meek, everybody knows the story. Young man, did a little something silly, did a little bit of time, then they kept you on probation forever. Every time you sneeze wrong, they try to throw you back in. Tell us what you learned this last time that you went in and why you have come out and now is such a strong champion.
Just addressing it from the beginning.
Is this on?
Yeah, y'all can hear me? Just addressing things from the beginning. I come from North Philadelphia. I don't know if anybody ever been to North Philadelphia, but I grew up kind of in a rough environment. In the environment I grew up in, you know, we've seen a lot of things. We've seen a lot of people strung out on drugs. We've seen a lot of violence. We've seen a lot of people killed in our lives. And, you know, we grew up in like a survival mode when you grew up in an area where you see a lot of death and, you know, you see a lot of violence. And, you know, actually, I was hanging in the wrong areas, and I got caught up in the system at the age of 19. At the age of 19, I was a popular rapper in my community, and I was had a few mixtapes out, and I was making a few dollars for myself and started doing good by the age of 21. By the age of 22, I actually struck a record deal with Rick Ross, and I'm 31 years old now, and I've never been back to prison for criminal activity. And through the years of 19 and 31, I was sent back to prison, I think, 3 times. One time actually was for coming to DC. I stayed like in a Virginia hotel or Maryland hotel, and I didn't fill my travel out right. I was violated, I was sent back to prison. At one time, I was sent to prison for an opioid addiction. I got addicted to taking Percocets, and you know, every time I used to see my probation officer, she used to ask me, but you know, it was an addiction, and I wanted to hide the addiction. I wasn't actually being open with sharing my addiction. And you know, anytime I had a dirty urine, I was sent to prison. And this last time, actually just seeing the support of the people stand on my side, because I come from like a small household, single mother household. We never really had like a lot of support. So, you know, seeing that people support me the way they supported me, and being on that side of the fence where, you know, I seen a lot of other young men in prison just for like small technical violations. I don't know if people know what a technical violation is. You don't have to commit crime, actual crime, to go to prison for years at a time. And, you know, me seeing that and getting the support from people, I just thought when I get out, I felt like I owe a part of my platform to help change the world and, you know, help change some of these things and bring light to these situations.
We're going to come back and talk about some of the great stuff that you've been doing. You ain't been home but a minute, you're already trying to change laws. So we're going to better talk about that. I want to also now bring you to the forefront, Dr. Scott. And as you introduce yourself, just one thing, I think the role of women and women artists is something that we don't talk enough about in the struggle. I know you're the world's expert on that, so we'll say whatever you want to say, but definitely, if you can bring that into the conversation, I think it's going to be powerful.
So I'm born and raised in Oakland, and so I have family members who are in.
Can you hear?
Thumbs up. Better? Hello? Better? All right, yeah, myself, so you hear me.
You got to eat it. Go close.
I'm born and raised in Oakland, and my experiences with the criminal justice system come from having family members both in and out on both sides of the justice system. My interest in Black history came from my grandparents, from people who were actually part of the Civil Rights Movement, although they're not named members of the Civil Rights Movement, and namely my grandmothers. So they were strong Black women who told me the roles that were missing from the history books. You know, you see your average textbook and women are maybe marginalized on the side. If you're talking about Black history, they may be non-existent. And so wanting to know more about my own history, my own culture, led me to go into studying history in college and in graduate school, and really trying to fill in the gaps. And I study blues women, jazz women, people like Bessie Smith, people like Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan. And I try to talk about how average everyday culture talks about or gives voices to the voiceless. So my students, for example, are not going to necessarily know about lynching in the 1930s. But if I play them Strange Fruit and show them pictures of Billie Holiday, they can make a recognition. They can see that same connection between someone singing Strange Fruit and Beyonce singing Freedom or Kendrick Lamar.
Explain to us why you came here and why this topic of criminal justice is important to you. If you can just include any reference at all to Pop, and how what would Pop be saying about the stuff we're seeing today?
Yes, sir. Van Jones is an American original, isn't he? He's an American original. I begin there because Hakeem Jeffries, one of the most brilliant and gifted legislators we have in the nation today, and Van Jones, one of the most powerful, brilliant, and courageous public intellectuals on the front line in the midst of the crackerocracy. Fighting battles in a serious fashion. I used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. So I have to rhyme like that to shine like this. Meek Mill, right, for all the things he can be celebrated for, having the maturity of Black masculinity to squash the beef with Drake. Good audience right here today. Thank you, Drake, for coming out. Stand up, Drake. When we have a highly gifted entertainer like Meek Mill from Philadelphia, Philadelphia now, serving time, as Jay-Z said, all these years later, for what he did as a young person. Listen, do not miss what he said. Opioid addiction. He's in prison, he's in jail. The masses of young white people who are now opioid addicted are receiving, according to the Orange Apparition, help and support from the state, while black folk get sent to jail. They get medicalized, we get criminalized. The reason I got a brother been in the Stone Hotel for 29 years. Accused of murder, right? He slung drugs in Detroit. He was not a choir boy. I believe he's innocent, but I understand he got sent to jail for that crime. I know people who were on tape committing murder got out in 10 years. So I know at the same time from both ends to be both a victim of the vicious atrocities that we perpetrate against each other and a victim of a system that refuses to acknowledge the fundamental humanity of black and brown people in American society. So I say this, Tupac said, somebody wake me, I'm dreaming. I started as a seed to semen, swimming upstream, planted in the womb while screaming. On the top was my pops, my mama hollering stop from a single drop. This is what they got? Not to disrespect my people, but my papa was a loser. Only plan he had for mama was the blanker and abuser. And even as a seed, I could see his plan for me, stranded on welfare, another broken family. Juxtaposed, and I'll end here to him saying this. Just the other day, I got lynched by some crooked cops. And to this day, them same cops on the beat getting major pay. But when I get my check, they taking tax out, so we paying the cops to knock the blacks out. What Tupac understood is that anytime you are a paying American citizen, you are subsidizing your own oppression if you fail to hold accountable the forces of the state that are against us. There are good cops out here trying to do the right thing. Black folk call cops more than anybody else in America. On your mama. But the reality is, we know the difference between law enforcement aiming to edifyingly engage with us as members of the state and those who demonize us because they have a corrupt conception of our fundamental dignity and humanity. Tupac died 22 years ago, but his voice continues to resonate in American society and reverberate in the halls of our collective consciousness. And that's why I'm here today, to celebrate that genius, but to articulate the central proposition of justice in America, which we need today more than ever before.
And thank you very much. And I wanted to say to Jeffrey Halston, I'm so sorry. I didn't. If I had thought this out more clearly, I would have let him go last. But the rest of us will have to do the best that we can. I do want to say before I bring on, sir, is that some of you guys may have missed one of the references, but for Meek Mill and Drake to squash the beef publicly. The first time these two brothers laid hands on each other was to shake hands and hug and give a pound. Understand what that means. That means for all of us who work with our young people, they printed a license for us to go out and say, why don't you do a Meek and Drake? Why don't you do a Meek and Drake? Why don't you do a Meek and Drake? And in 3 syllables, we now have a license to go out and fight for peace in our own community because this brother has been willing to do things, admit to addiction publicly. That frees a lot of people. Come out of prison and fight for prison reform. That frees a lot of people. And then shake hands with somebody who he's been beefing with all these years, never let it get it past words.
Rap battling.
What?
Rap battling, not beef.
Yeah, that's right. No violence. But in it, keep it straight. Keep it straight. But I just want to say this. When black men do beautiful stuff, can black men get some love for doing beautiful stuff? Anyway, I just had to say that, and thank you for correcting my misstatement. Jeffrey Halston, you served in government, you've served on boards at the highest level, you're in the industry. Help us understand, as more of these young artists are getting so-called woke, getting so-called conscious, wanting to step out, how do you see the role of music and musicians and art in our struggle for justice from your position?
Well, first of all, you all hear me? So, it's interesting you use the term woke, because it's really what we've seen in the last, I've been in the music business for over 25 years, and artists have always been expressive in their music. But what we've seen really in the last 10 years, longer than that, 20 to 30 years, we've seen a different type of expression. And I think a lot of it comes from the growth and emergence of hip-hop. Because hip-hop is a different type of medium. Hip-hop is urgent, and hip-hop is angry, and hip-hop is almost definitionally confrontation and proud at the same time. And what we're finding is artists are woke. They are coming into their own, and they're expressing it in lyrics, like Dr. Dyson was reciting from Tupac. You know, you go back to, you look at the Public Enemy records from the early 90s. I mean, these are artists that were stepping out and making a statement, probably putting themselves at risk for their careers, what they could achieve commercially. But what we're seeing now is, in addition to the lyrical expression, you're also finding artists taking their celebrity and using that, whether it's Beyonce using the Super Bowl platform to make a statement with Foundation, or whether it's Meek stepping out and doing what he's doing now, putting his, this is a guy who's sitting here bearing his life for all of you to explain his story to make it better for others. And we're seeing that more and more often with artists that are coming on. And it is really in the hip hop genre. There's always been artistry across genres that has been very expressive. Bands like U2 have been very expressive. That's there. But what we're seeing in the modern age artists today is a willingness to stand up, use the celebrity, use social media, use what they have. Not only it's in the music, but taking it beyond the music.
What we must do is leverage the position. Thomas Jefferson had sex with a 14-year-old girl. It didn't start with R. Kelly. That was a lot more than Papa the Willie. Right? So my point is that if we have forgiven the great sins of great men because of patriarchy and white supremacy, this criminal justice system must be turned around so that thriving, intelligent young men and women like this man right here will rise up to become our leaders and continue to express our.
Can you talk a little bit about the impact of your case on some of the people who maybe didn't even know what was going on, who now have become more passionate?
I felt like sometimes it took people to come from higher places and come see me for people to view the situation different. Even when I was arrested, it was certain officials that worked at the prison, they were who does this guy think he is, what do you think he's special? I'm like, I don't think I'm special. I don't even want to be here. You know what I'm saying? I don't want anything extra here. It was one guy, and this is an example. It was one guy, he just always used to talk bad. He was an official CEO, and then Kevin Hart, my friend Michael Rubin came to see me, and then he was like, wow, I gotta open my eye up to this now. And I'm like, why does it take a celebrity and a guy that's a billionaire to come visit me for you to open your eyes? You know what I'm saying? And me, I don't judge people because I don't know anybody's stories. I don't know anybody's decisions they made in their life. And, I just thought, when I got out, I'm gonna speak for the voice, like you said, the voice of the voiceless, the people who don't have somebody to speak up for them. Like I seen one of the questions where they said, like, what would you say to the people trapped behind a wall that don't have a platform like you? I say nothing to them. I say something to the people on the other side of the wall for us to bring light and support the ones that are caught up in situations.
Just let that just sit for a second.
And two, like I don't like come into these type of situations like laying myself out as like an angel. I don't commit crime. I actually I employ a lot of young black men. I do a lot of community service in my neighborhood. I don't attach myself to stupid things, but you know, through life, I've been through things in life which a lot of people in this room probably been through. And you know, the way they set it up for me, like, now it's to the point, if you make the smallest mistake in the world, it's like, you're an asshole, or you're a mess up, basically. And you know, I walk a straight line, and you know, I gotta live looking over my back left and right, because even doing things like this, you have authorities in areas where I'm from that are even angered even more that I'm reaching back to try to even help fix these type problems. So you know, I just call it, people always say, I'm sorry for what you had to go through. That 6 months was bad, but it turned out to be a blessing, you know what I'm saying? And I take it as a blessing, and that's the way we're gonna carry it. And you know, I'm gonna use my platform, continue to use my platform, and try to make a difference.